Let me do a quick prayer. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Cool, man. All right, let's do it. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, dear Father God, thank you for all the opportunities you've given us. Thank you for meeting Josh and his team, the Sweaty Leaders. Thank you for all the hardworking men that we come across. May our words, may be impeccable with our words and help impact as many people as possible, whether they're in the trade, young growing men, or whoever's in this industry. Yeah, that's it. Amen, brother.
Hey, folks. You're about to meet someone who doesn't just lead from the front. He sets the tone for the entire shop, much like he just did for me. With a little over 15 years of hands-on experience and a title of ASE Master Certified Technician, John Baranski has earned his stripes. He's not just a foreman in the marine world. He's the kind of leader who turns chaos into clarity. He turns technicians into top performers. This guy knows what it takes to run a shop. Why do I know this? Well, he's part of the Sweaty Leader crew. We've got about 25 folks in that group who talk about leadership, challenges they're having every day, and how the 20 or so of us try and help each other sort it out. John is always one of those who chips in a little tidbit, say, hey, this is what we do, this is how we roll, how do you guys think you'd handle the situation, or feedback on how he would. This is the kind of thing that helps teams thrive, helps his team respect him and how he earns their respect. And at the end of the day, this is his story, and you get to meet him on the Wrench Turners podcast. And let's get into it. John, thank you very much for giving us a little bit of time on this day, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Josh. It's a pleasure. It's an honor to be on your Reg Turner podcast. Man, what an experience it's been. Our relationship has really grown, and it's awesome to just be here and be around your community and what you started and what you've grown. Sweaty Leaders is, wow, life-changing. So many good men following us. You know, you're definitely leading a great thing, and it's really amazing to be a part of it. It's been an amazing ride. Yeah, let's get it.
Let's get it. So let's take back. So it's been a minute since you've been around, and because you have a slightly different industry than just about everybody else that's in that group, and you're definitely the first Marine, at least right now, first Marine that we've had on the show. Let's talk about what got you into the trade as it stands for you now.
The Marine part, or just in general?
In general, what got you into the trade, and we'll get to the Marine part as it progresses, but what got you in at the beginning?
Man, wrenching has just always been, I guess, embedded in me. You know, even as a kid, I would always tinker. So I was that kid, like, if I had the toy, I would probably get bored of it after like an hour and then just start taking it apart. And at that point, I didn't know, even if I didn't know how to put it back together, I would start messing around with it, taking it apart, playing with it, you know, and I didn't realize how much that was a part of me and how important it was to me to always carry that. And, you know, it wasn't until I didn't find that and like really find my career until after probably graduating high school. You know, you get that first car, you're messing with it here and there. You know, once again, took it apart, didn't know how to put it back together, but like, it was just something that was always there. And I just knew once I got out of high school, I did like one semester of college, I was like, this isn't it, man. This isn't for me, you know, and then eventually I got recruited. So shout out to Lincoln Tech. I'm sure some of you guys went to a tech school, but yeah, like they caught me at a good time when I was in college. I was like, man, half a semester in, I'm like, yo, this is high school all over again. I'm not really feeling this, you know, and I finally got into something I wanted to pursue, and it was just kind of the door opener. You know, I'm really thankful that, you know, people talk a lot about the recruiters because I've seen a lot of people that don't belong in those schools. At the end of the day, it's trying stuff, figuring it out, see what you like. You got to go for it, you know, and I would have never had that opportunity if I didn't go there. So that was
It's interesting that there's a lot of difficult things that occur with recruiters, both from people getting recruited as well as businesses that employ recruiters, whether it's internal recruiters. Shout out to Patty Ruggia, who's an internal recruiter for a very large auto group up here in Canada. And you have alternatives like recruiters like Larry Feldman at Career Changers USA, who is an outside external. He's a business on himself. He's a recruiter and sales trainer. There's a lot of hate put on them. And And unfortunately, in some circumstances, it's justified because there's very obviously a poor judgment call made somewhere. We need to make sure that we do our due diligence when working with people. It doesn't matter who it is or why it is or where it is and so forth, but making sure that folks have the best foot forward and that they are looking out for the interest of the individual they're recruiting. Just to make the recruiting quota fulfilled isn't good enough. That due diligence by the person being recruited is required to some degree. Unfortunately, as a young individual, it's very difficult to suss those things out, right? We don't have the wherewithal, the experience to do that due diligence properly. So we have to lean on those around us who know more to say, hey, this is what's in front of me right now. What do you think? So to that point, you didn't have that at the time, that where you felt confident, where you could ask like, hey, is this a good idea? So it led you into something where it may not have been the best for you, but it still led you down a path where you started to enjoy certain things and learn certain things and taste certain things. Okay, I didn't like it, but now I'm here. So to that point, you got recruited, you're at school. So what happened next?
I mean, mind you, I was terrible in school. I hated it going up, which is why going up into college, I was like, I can't do more of this. So I knew I was on the right path once I got in there, when I was like hitting it. I was loving the content, great A's, perfect attendance, straight through. And I met a great group of guys, passing in and out. Obviously the success rate is just like any other, scholastic or so, we had one of the largest classes starting. It was like 30 people. I don't even know. I don't think, definitely all 30 didn't make it. I think it was like maybe 10, maybe less. And it was just, another statistic, but I really took it. I loved every moment of it, to the point where they actually have job placement. And then that brings us to where I kind of started into the auto. And it was the worst time to get into the business. It was literally like right after '08 crash. I was totally oblivious to that. My parents, my father was a trade electrician. He did all right through there, so we didn't lose any major things. But when I finally graduated and got out of there, I think it was maybe 10. It was still the effects of that for sure. So the first job I applied for, I didn't get, and then they hired someone else over me. I didn't have like any tools, so boom, off rip. I was like, man. Then luck be held, they fired that guy and then called me. So I was like, wow, that was fast. And then I probably worked there for about a year and the dealership closed. I was like, yo, so first like right off rip, you're finally in the dealers, and then you're seeing all their stores closing or finish closing or pulling out. Just like market changes, people are folding heavy, and I was just like, wow. But I had met some great people in there. One of my best mentors, well, two of my best mentors were there. One was an old school foreman. The other was like A-line, just money machine. Like he was everything. And I learned all my best habits from him. And that was crucial for me to stay in that business. And they even it was when that dealer closed, how the good really stick around. You tend to you see where the best people go, and they end up flocking together because the industry is pretty small, actually, believe it or not. Word of mouth is strong. Good techs are obviously hard to come by. And once again, going to the next dealer, they didn't want me. I was like, sheesh. But, my mentor and my foreman's like, nah, we got to bring this kid with us, which was great. And then the manager that didn't want me, God rest his soul, Bob O'Connell, strict, super strict, man. He called all that stuff. No lates, none of this. He was on me. Even though I had potential, he didn't care. He was on me. So that's how I got real good with my paperwork. Was, cross all the T's, dot all the I's, was through him. And I turned out being one of his best technicians ever, and so like it takes that, you gotta have that grunt, that ethic, just will, shops are tough. There's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of, things that happen in there. There's a lot of substance abuse. There's so many things that are in a shop that will just eat you alive and turn you out. A lot of the vets, they see new guys come and go because of that. So once you get past all that, then you really got to start developing your craft.
You got a couple of things in there to dissect. So you started after '08-ish happened. I got my first flat rate gig like 2 months before the crash. I went to a CDJR store in September of '08, and crash occurred in mid to late October, if I recall correctly. This is going back a long damn way now. And, you're right. There's a lot of challenges, and it's really down to work ethic. I think I got work hard tattooed on me. It's our family mantra. It matters because there's nothing, again, I say this all the time. Yeah, we gotta work smart, not work hard. Well, guess what? You gotta work hard to figure out what working smart is like, right? And as you noted, you had some mentors. Thank God, so did I. Those mentors are what get us through it, what teaches that ethic. It really teaches you the little tidbits that you need to learn. You're talking about an A-line tech who knows how to jam out, right? You need to find yourself one to learn from. You've also got to find yourself a leader to mimic that strict, old school to a point, old school but empathetic. You find that kind of mentor, and in one person, that's gold. You find two that have similar traits but slightly different things. That's like finding diamonds laying on the street, right? So I'm thankful that I had some, and I'm really thankful that you had some, and how they held you accountable, right? That's probably one of the biggest things that they taught you, right? Is teaching you how to hold yourself accountable to things that you've promised. Would you say that it's probably one of the biggest things?
The accountability is huge, and figuring out how to apply that lately has been a struggle. Obviously, like you said, people don't have that same old school mentality, or you don't get that a lot, but that's my goal, is to everything I learned in the industry growing up, I want to transfer that to whoever I can, whoever's willing and able to take that, because not everybody is also, And even the people that are kind of resistant to it, that's probably my biggest challenge, getting that little breakthrough, just to try and get them to start trust you. I saw the first step in mentorship is trust, so if you don't have that, you're not going to have people listening to you, and that's one of the things I've been really trying to break through on a lot, I feel like that would impact people the most, is once you have them, because obviously, you could be successful, but having people look at you in that way is tough, just, oh, he's got it better than me. He's got he's got more opportunities, or he grew up this way, or whatever. So putting that aside is difficult.
That victim mentality is one of the biggest things that we have to overcome in somebody else. And remember that trust is not built by asking for help. Sorry, trust is given by asking for help, not by giving it. So as leaders, we tend to say, I help this person out, I help this person out, I help this person out. We assume early on that is what's going to build trust in our teams, and it's not what it unfortunately does, especially now with current mindsets shifting the way they are. I don't think that they're nearly as bad as some might say in terms of entitlement and things of that nature. But what I would say is we find ourselves in a position where we're giving this, and we're giving this, and we're giving this, and it's being perceived as a form of ignorance and arrogance, and it's not being received well. So we need to shift ourselves into a more open, more vulnerable but confident. There's a line there, and that line is found by asking for help. And it doesn't have to be big, and it doesn't have to necessarily be vulnerable, but when you ask for help, it's actually an act of vulnerability, because you allow someone to say no. And when you give somebody the option to say no, it means they now have the power of the conversation. It could be something as simple as pushing a broom, right? Can you help me out? I want to make sure that the floor's clean and the shop's clean tomorrow for everybody here. Can you give me a hand? I don't want you to do it for me. I'd like you to help me make sure it's clean for the shop for the rest of the team tomorrow. You're being open. It's assist, not do, right? And then you move up to the do, because until you build enough trust, asking someone to do something for you, especially as perceived low as pushing a broom, it's difficult to earn that, right? So that's an early tidbit. So to that point, in your first year, you had a couple of mentors in a shop that unfortunately closed, and it just goes to show that it doesn't matter how great a few players on the team are, if the leadership of the whole team isn't solid, the business is unfortunately very at risk. So what happened after the dealership closed?
let's look for a job, or where we moving to next. And then it was like, you got whole dealers looking for jobs. So
Wow.
the is basically went to kind of who you know at that point. And I didn't move far, but I went from, it was Pontiac. So it was Pontiac, Buick GMC. Not only did the dealer close, Pontiac, they were gone. Pontiac and Saturn, I think, same time, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So Hummer, I think they went out. Like, it was like, dude, it was like, what am I doing? Am I in the right spot? But it's cool. I was still young, I was still eager, and I think I had good weight in there where some of the guys, they kind of embraced me. So off rep, 3 of the other guys found another dealer. That's when I shifted to Cadillac. And Cadillac at the time, and I think it still is for some people, is like, oh God, I hate working on Cadillacs. It's so difficult. At the end of it's General Motors, but they look at it as, they put it on such a pedestal how difficult it was. And I didn't know any better. So I just went in there, as a B level or a C level. And as soon as I get there, they boom, whacked like 2 guys. They're like, I don't like these guys' attitude. Boom, I got more guys. I'm like, so first job, all right, put the last guy's job back together. Caddy DTS, fully apart, engine, everything. So I did that just like a kid, taking it, well, okay, here's all the pieces. All right, cool. At least I got I got service information this time. Put that back together. And then I was taking other crap jobs that no one wanted. Hard, difficult stuff, convertible tops, water leaks. I mastered water leaks at in the beginning. People hated that stuff. I mastered convertible tops. Nobody wanted to touch that stuff. When hybrids were right there, 2010, 2011, guess who was there? I was always the kid. They were like, all right, you're going to do this. And I was like, all right, cool. Take it. Give it to me. And I learned how to turn that into gold with the assistance of my mentors. My foreman, who was one of the first non-working foremans I saw, old school guy, Ronnie Pizzuti, God rest his soul. He was excellent, like a whiz with circuitry, everything. So having him next to me, work through him, was great. And then my other mentor, Remo, he knew how to work the pen. The power of the pen was the biggest thing. So me being there, just fine-tuning my education a little bit, straight shop life. I didn't really take the training too hard or serious. I would do it, online here and there. They would send me to the convertible tops, order leaks. That clicked. Once I went to those schools, convertible tops and water leaks, I was like, man, why is everyone scared of this? Like, yo, just get the education on it. So another bunch of years go by there. Cadillac, that store closes. Maybe 2 years in, we went to and God willing, the same group, boom, started moving a little bit north, not too far, Cadillac store, Premier. And that's when I really did about 6 years there, if I'm not mistaken. And that's when I got to work for an actual pristine dealer who invested in their I wouldn't say their community, but they were getting, like, I guess coaching, or you pay consulting for like Fortune 500 companies. These people had multiple dealers across the country. They were very wealthy. So they knew how to turn that culture. They turned that around, because we came in without that. They cracked the whip hard on us and trained that, which now is one of the hardest things I do. And I always try and go back to that, how they coach that, the mission statement, the vision. Having everybody know that was like really impactful there. And I was like, wow, this is great. And a lot of people aren't susceptible to that. You got a lot of pushing. Oh man, I got a jumpstart meeting every single day, reading the mission statement every day. Like, people don't like that. But eventually it grew into something great, which is awesome, which I would love to carry, into this new store that's growing. And I've seen it work, and I've seen what it does. And I understand what Fortune 500s, the Ritz, when you walk in there, or even some of the higher end stores, how they don't just point over there, hey, over there. They walk you to where you need to go. And it's a whole science. I'm super fascinated by it, and I got great opportunities now where I'm at to kind of implement this. But it wasn't until I wasn't even in the car. I was still in the car when I started moving to venturing out in different areas. But it brought me down here to Florida. I'm in Miami, Florida now. So after 6 years there, I like to travel and have fun. So I come to Miami a lot, and I would hit up the nightlife. I would party for a couple, I would come down in March. March just passed. March is music week down here. It's every DJ in the world pretty much comes here, and they have some epic parties. In January, I would go on a cruise every year where they had just DJs and parties. And that was peak winter. I know you know winter, man. That was in January. It's brutal cold, bro. For January, February is hardcore in the north. So I would always fly down here in January, party, and I would go back to New York, and I was miserable. Like like winter depression, whatever depression you had, like coming off a vacation, coming back, like my car is covered in ice. I was like, man, maybe I should just start looking at down here. And it didn't take long to pick up a job in South Florida. You know, they hunt that northern, that city mentality, like they yearn it. And I was like, holy shnikes, I could do this anywhere, you know? And it wasn't until then, and that was still in the cards, brought to Cadillac down to here. And I was like, this trade thing is pretty cool. Like, you could go a lot of places. So it wasn't until I hit my mastery when I got to South Florida. That's when I really started honing in on my skills. Got through them. No, nobody aces AACs, man. I probably took them. I think I made the mistake of taking all 4 in one day. Never again. Because I think the limit's 4, right? 4 in one session, because they're like, you get 2 hours each one or something like that. So all 4 in one shot, never again. You know, I've probably passed 1 out of 4. I was like, sheesh. You know, kept at it. The dealer pays for it. My whole family's in New York. I'm training at my hometown center in New York. My dealer's paying me because they're used to paying people to go on training. I'm flying home, I'm staying home. I must have flew 30, 40 times to where I got to stay with my family and for not a single cost, get my General Motors master education, finished all that. And I was like, man, now I'm flying back and forth, New York and Florida, like for nothing. I was like, this is crazy. I was like, this is a dream, you know? And it wasn't even that point. I wasn't even getting started, you know? It was really unreal. And so laying more into that, seeing more of that, where you can go, where this trade would take you. You know, my dealer at one point, they sold the most tires in our quarter, in our area, in our region. And they set me up to go to Daytona to rip the Cadillac CTSVs around the racetrack. And I was like, I got chills right now. That experience was insane. And I always got to like thank God and really stop and take a second, like, wow, how far I've came, how I've gotten these opportunities. And it's, you know, the mentors is a big part of it, but that grit, that work hard, that, you know, that's the major part. Like, don't give up. Like, you really have to hold to that. And you've really got to be, I don't know, man. It's something about knowing when you're in the right path that really starts to hone in. So I think for people to realize that they're in their, I guess, their flow state, that's when you really start to lay in and you're like, man, this is where I'm meant to be. This is what I'm meant to do. And then as you grow, it's, you know, I was always a mentee, but eventually you're going to be in the room. You're eventually the smartest one in the room, right? So then you gotta, there's a point where you could stay there if you're cool. I was cool there. I was still making 6 figures. You know, the trade always has routes to make 6 figures plus. So that's a great bar to hit. But I'm like, man, there's so much more. And so being at that level wasn't for long, where I started to kind of seek out in different ways. And, you know, once you feel like you're physically maxed out of your hands, that's when you start kind of pouring into other people. You know, I had a foreman role at the caddy store I was at, and the working foreman role is super tough. It's really difficult I think it's more common in dealers to have the working foreman, and it put a lot of stress on you, you know, and obviously they have to understand what the foreman role is, because a lot of places, they'll give the guys the hardest stuff, and they'll be fixing the comebacks, but you'll take that burden on yourself as a rookie foreman. You'll want to do it all, but you can't. Got to use the tools. Your tools in your toolbox change fast when you become the foreman. And so I had that position, and probably for about a year, and I kind of got pulled out of it because I was like, yo, I'm not, you know, this isn't working for me. But I was naturally drawn to that leadership role. My father was a foreman. I've seen him work with a bunch of guys under him, and it was just always a natural path too. In the game for that long, kind of, like I said, you're at that teetering point. You could stay there, or you could just keep moving up. But the game switches heavy after that. Once you're not working by yourself anymore. Because I could always bet on myself and I'm going to win. But when you're betting on other people, it's like, it's tough to get that out of them. So that's something I really, really had to learn I'm still learning. I'm so great. Like, I mean, I'm probably maybe a year or 2 into foreman, but that's still green, man. And it's not even just foreman. I'm a little, you know, I've taken a position that's higher than that. Like, it's assistant serviceman. I'm basically managing, you know, most of my peers, and it's definitely taking its tolls, but being around like-minded individuals is so important, and I don't have that around me. So, which is kind of what drew me to you, where I seek guys like you, and you plug me into other guys I hadn't, that are going through this. That's really where, like I said, like when we're in that level, you're the only one that's kind of like the smartest in the room. That's where you need to elevate your circle, and that's how I found That's how I found you and Sweaty Leaders, pretty much.
You've said a couple of things in there that I want to dissect a little bit. So first, spending a lot of time going through what sounds like, if I get this right, 3 different stores that closed, working with a brand that shuttered, then working with a brand which is regularly misconceived as one thing and it potentially as another, meaning Cadillac in America is touted as a luxury brand, but only in Cadillac is it touted as a luxury brand. Just about everywhere else in the world that it's sold or given, it's a premium brand, not a luxury brand. I think that stigma with a brand like Cadillac, Cadillac makes it a challenge for those who work, whether it's sales or service, because the immediate gut reaction of those working in there is like, oh, well, what am I doing here? What am I working on? Am I prestige or not? Or what goes hand in hand with that? And that results in stores that don't really have an identity. But what you've also communicated is that those same stores, that last store you mentioned there, you worked roughly there for 6 years, it was really focused on mission, vision, and values. It has a core business model. It has a mantra that it runs the entire facility on, and it drives the culture of the store, which means not only do the staff of the store understand exactly what it is expected of them from a mission, vision, value statement, but so will the customers feel exactly what that is, because if you walk into a business and everybody is on the same page, you feel it. Right? It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. If everybody's on the same page, you feel it. And that really comes to my statement that I regularly say is that a high value leader will change lives, and it will change the lives of the people they employ, and it will change the lives of the people that they serve. So technically that's both of those, but you understand what I mean by guest in that nature. Now coming up to the point where as you get close to that 90 to 95%, and there's a big difference between 90 and 100% as we go through the trade as mechanics, you get to that 90% mark where you have mastered a lot of things. You've gotten a lot of opportunities because you've put in the hard work. You've got yourself educated and trained up in a lot of different areas. You become very self-sufficient in a lot of different areas of the vehicle, so you can fix anything, anywhere, pretty much any of the time. 9.5 times out of 10. You get to that point and you start realizing that I need to be doing other things. I need to be learning more. Need to learn differently. I need to be leading teams or promoted or whatever have you. That doesn't necessarily come natural to a lot of people. I believe that there are unfortunately a pile of people that hear the call. It's like, I need to be promoted, and I feel like I'm in that position where I need to be promoted. I need to be leading teams. Doesn't mean that they should be, unfortunately. And also, unfortunately, those same people are usually very difficult to get out of that chair. They should not be leading. They should not be influencing people, especially new people or young people in the industry, with the mindsets that they have, usually arrogance, ignorance, compulsive nature to be self-centered, self-serving. The flip side of that is they typically hold a chair for somebody who should be in that position as a leader. So I'm thankful that you've had that opportunity to be in the chair and so forth and grown into what you are now. Pause on the leadership conversation for a little bit because I want to get that a little bit more, and I appreciate the shout out because it's really hard out there. Adequate leadership information for shop leaders. There's lots of information out there for service managers, due diligence to see whether it's valuable or not. But there's lots of information out there for service leaders, service managers. There's service director information, like that kind of level stuff, general manager stuff. There's lots of stuff out there. Technician stuff is very technical focused, but there is almost no information out there for shop foremen, working or non-working at all. There is almost no information or groups or people out there providing value or community for shop foremen, which potentially is the second hardest role in the dealership. The hardest role is service advisor, bar none. and I will die on that hill. The service advisor is the hardest role in the industry, because you have to know how to be a salesperson, and you have to know how to be a customer service person, and you have to understand technology, and you have to understand legal paperwork, and you have to understand the actual technical aspect of vehicles to be able to eloquently explain it to customers. No one anywhere, I would even put that to other industries. Service advisors in other industries don't have to deal with the same amount, volume, and disparity that service advisors in the vehicle industry have to deal with, other than service advisors who are doing it independent, who don't have sales to deal with. So a dealership service advisor, I still believe, is the hardest role in the dealership. The second hardest is a working foreman. Non-working is different, because now they're very focused on leading a team, not also producing for themselves. So the working foreman is the second hardest role in the dealership. So having a group of men and women who are in a very similar role, I think there is seven of the folks that are in our Sweater Leader crew are working foremen. So being able to share that insight back and forth between very specifically rolled people is an invaluable asset in this industry, because there won't be many. Because if you're doing any dispatch work, if you're doing any helping another technician work, that is actually a conflict, because it means that you aren't producing for yourself. And it takes a very special individual who is capable of being objective. It's like, hey, it's a priority to help the team out right now. I got to lose in order to do that, but I have to help the team out right now. So that's why I believe it's the second hardest job in the dealership. Now, to that point, let's move back a little bit before we get into where you are now. What made you make the transition, even though you moved to Florida and worked for a Cadillac dealer in Florida? What made you transition from cars to boats?
Sheesh, man. I mean, it's trippy. I'll tell you. Part of it is COVID. Actually, it was right around that time. It's like I say, it's trippy because I was right at the point in my caddy store where we were kind of transitioning. We were working out of a tent, like a temp. They built a pretty sick structure, footed some concrete, because we moved locations and they were in the middle of building our main dealer. So this year or two was around during COVID, and Florida, man, I'm sorry for the rest of the folks. Like, that was a tough time for a lot of people, truly, man. And I don't ever want to belittle that, but Florida was one of the best states to be in during that time. It might have been just any red state. I think Texas maybe as well. Like, their laws are very different, and we didn't stop. We didn't have to deal with a lot of that stuff. And obviously we were essential, so across the nation. So I don't know if that was a thing up in Canada, but we didn't stop working. And it's crazy too, because COVID was one of my best years. It's really wild to say that. I met my wife, who I have now. I've done a lot of things, and working at that dealer through that time, all under, like, we didn't know if it was legal or not, but we did it kind of under the carpet. We stayed in business. We satisfied all our customers, still selling cars, and it was all good. We were making money. And then as we moved into the new store, I'm guessing it went to a more corporate structure, where all of a sudden they're like, all right, we need you to test religiously and get vaxxed. And I was like, shoot. And this was at the time where I'd taken vax in New York, flu vaccines, like maybe once or twice, because they were given by the job, like, oh, and I was at that point, like, I've had one or two, and each time I got them, I got really ill, like super ill, to the point where I was like, I don't want to take this vaccine. And I wouldn't say I was so much an anti-vaxxer, but I actually took one or two in a row. I was like, maybe it was that year. Let me try it again. Second year, boom, sick, near close to ammonia. So me being down here, I was like, yo, I don't have to worry so much about flu anymore. And this whole thing was going on, and it's to work in the new shop, they made it mandatory. And I was like, and it wasn't only that, it was to go on a cruise I had booked. It was a mandatory thing. And I was like, dude, I'll just cancel the cruise. I'll get my money back. I'll go on to the next thing. There was one other thing where I forget one other occasion, but then the third one was the job. And they were like, you need to do this to stay here. And I was like, shit, man. I was like, I just canceled this cruise. I forgot what other incident I had. And I was like, yo, at this point, I'm just sticking to this. And I got a call from someone I used to work with and was like, hey, are you happy where you are? And then I was like, no. I was like, I'm not. I'm going through it right now. And they're like, why don't you come here? Why don't you check out this store? I think you could do really good. So I heard of the brand. I knew it was a marine shop. I was like, I've always known like South Florida is super abundant. The marine industry, I've always thought about it. But at this time, it was kind of like divine, because I was going through that. And, I was like, yeah, let me check it out. I get there. The brand is Nautique. That's where I work now. And Nautique, they make some of the baddest wake surfing boats around. And I'm looking in, I'm checking them out. I'm like, these are V8s, these are LT4s, I'm like supercharged LT1s. I'm like, this is fucking Cadillac, dude. I was like,
This is what have I been working on for the last 10 years?
are you guys serious right now? And that's their primary. It was 6.0s, 6.2s. I was like, sign me up. I was like, and not only that, like I had such a good mindset from, how everything I went through. And when I got there, the pay was crazy. Like I was like, this is for real. Like you guys have a blended flat rate. You're gonna pay me hourly to turn wrenches, but you're also gonna pay me an hourly if I don't, because it's so difficult dealing with the climate and conditions down here. Like everything is corroded, your wildest dreams, like the worst corrosion I've ever seen in my life. Like these are freshwater boats and they're putting them in straight saltwater, like the worst saltwater conditions in the world. I think there's only a couple that are worse in the world, but we're up there, and so they keep that in factor of how hard it is to meet flat rate times. So they'll pay you a base rate. And I was like, you're gonna give me what? I was like, and you're gonna give me this? I was like, this isn't even a risk right now. I was like, yo, I'm gonna kill this. I came from being, you get $0 an hour, bro. Like if you don't turn, or if you don't produce, you're getting zero. I was like, you're gonna pay me a flat rate plus I'm gonna get to hit this higher rate. I was like, this is that much value to you? And they're like, yeah, we need this that bad. And I was like, I'm in, and then that's when I went from being master, Cadillac tech to just fucking green to the marine industry, like super green. Like I didn't know port, starboard, aft, stern, none of that shit, bro. I didn't know any of that. And I was like, so that was a little bit of a obstacle to overcome, but I got to start my training all over again, because the engines, whatever, that's a piece of the boat. Like the other shit is way more complex and so much more diverse. And I was like, once I start digging into it, I'm like, wow. I was like, there's so much to learn here. So my mind was just already like, I'm like, great, I'm stimulated again. You don't get paid to do this shit. Like you got to do it for, not for free, because you're gaining knowledge. That's what you get out of it. That's your payment. You get to learn, and then you get to get more jobs, and then you get to master this, and then you get to step into different things that people aren't doing. You're into different areas. Next thing I know, I'm fucking traveling to Panama. I'm traveling to Ecuador. I'm sending people to the Bahamas. I'm like, this is really insane. Like how worldwide this is. I'm talking to people, to brands in Austria. I'm talking to, people in Italy. I'm like, different time zones. I'm like, this is like blowing my mind. I was like, this is awesome. And I had a great mentor there, Jim Huss. He was running the shop at the time. Shout out to Jim, great man. He was just, I remember when we hit it off, because he was turning wrenches hard when I first got there, and then he got into the foreman role, so he kind of stopped turning wrenches. And I remember like us, just vibing really good, because he reminded me of myself a lot in a different, just in the marine shop. So it was cool working next to him. He's like, man, it's really great having you on board. Like he really felt that when I was there, like it was good to have someone that has a clue of what's going on. Like, even though I wasn't into boats, just having a clue of what the hell is going on, how to fit, like critical thinking skills, being able to reach out, being able to, shift and learn fast. And not only that, but just take the hits on the chin, like whatever, if something's hard to fix or understand, it's part of it.
And that's what we're trying to teach our son right now is
Yeah.
is to figure it out. And the more we lay into it, the more we realize that we spent too long not doing it. Unfortunately, that figure it out, like let him struggle. Like you got to let him struggle, and you got to let him to figure out that, okay, it's going to take me a while to figure this out. but nobody's going to help me do it. And there's a line where they need to get help. Doesn't matter how old we are. You could be 4, you could be 40, you could be 100, doesn't matter. There's a line at which you need to ask for help to get through something, but you have to let them struggle in order to figure out that they need to ask for help. And then when they get help, okay, learn, and then they learn more. Okay, try. What else have you tried? Okay, let me give you another bullet to try. Let me give you another bullet to try. Let me give you another bullet to try. And now you have a whole clip that you can go, okay, next time a problem comes up, I'm going to try this, 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 I'm going to try this. Hey, I figured it out. Wait, I now have multiple clips worth of ammunition that I can figure out any problem. I'm now going through the whole thing. Now I'm not asking for help nearly as often. Now when I go ask for help, I can list off the 18 things that I've already done that would normally have either fixed it or figured it out. Now it's not. Now you bring in the teams. Okay, hive mind kind of things. Like we've talked about this in the past. I think I just recently talked about it with Alec Raffini, and that understanding that they need to learn how to figure it out, overcome the fear of not figuring it out by simply spending the time figuring it out. You're talking about spending what feels like a lifetime in automotive, and all of those skills translated into something into marine, right? Marine has something, you could spend 20 years in marine and then go work on cars, because quite honestly, there's a whole bunch of stuff, basic electrical, basic plumbing, basic heat, basic engine, basic ignition, fuel systems, all of that stuff, that basic stuff, it doesn't matter what it is that you're working on. It's the same across the board. There's there's some subtle differences. You talk about direct injecting or port injecting. You talk about, 5-volt supplies, 12-volt supplies, 24-volt supplies, depending on what you're talking about. Like basic hydraulics doesn't change, right? Hydraulics is hydraulics regardless of what industry you're working on. You could go from hydraulics on a boat to hydraulics on an excavator. It's the same thing. The controls might be a little bit different. The fundamental controls are not. It's still a valve that has to be opened or shut or moved left, right, whatever to make things move. But you're talking about turning an industry of learning and a decade of learning or better in automotive, translating into a new industry, which is not really a new industry, for an opportunity for you to move your family, and so forth, and have continue your life and education and so on and so forth. So I'm really happy to hear that you were able to do that in transition. And this is why I wanted to get more people from different industries that are still mechanics, but different industries to talk about it, because it doesn't matter what industry you're in. At the end of the day, we're mechanics. Yeah. Things are broke. We need to fix them. It doesn't matter whether times are tough or not, and that's very relevant for right day as we're talking in April of 2025, when we have a tariff war of sorts going on. So it doesn't matter. Like it really doesn't matter. Times are going to be a little bit different right now, but at the end of the day, we still need to be fixing things. We still need to be thinking ahead. We need to be thinking about our teams and how we educate them to be better. And that, I think, leads us into a little something here. And our last, not our final question, but what is your one piece of advice for mechanics to be happier, healthier, more productive?
Well, I had to think a little bit about, because when you say one piece, it's like, so I'm trying to figure out, there's like where it all leads to. And I think for me, it's got to be go the extra mile. It's got to be that can do attitude, and it's got to be that mindset where you're not always going to get a return for what it's pretty often you're not going to get a return for what you're doing. You just have to have that mindset of abundance. Technicians don't generally have that, like in sales careers, they teach you to always, like, you're planting seeds everywhere as a tech. Pretty much you got to just do what the people don't want to do. You got to do that free multi-point. You got to finish that. You got to do that video that no one's doing. You got to send the email that no one's doing. You got to contact tech support, and not even once say I did it. You got to contact them multiple times, follow up, all that stuff. It kind of just is a vote of confidence in yourself to add more grit to what you're gonna learn, what you're gonna do, and it builds resilience. Really, you gotta take that shit job that someone's it's the last job there. But I mean, like I was talking about the water leaks and the wind noises and the hybrids, like take it. what's going to happen? You know, either you sit there, you don't have work, or you pick this up, you learn something that no one else wants to do. That makes you more valuable. Once you're starting to learn more things, you take on the training that no one wants to do. You're certifying yourself in different areas, and you're getting your confidence up to kind of knock down those hard to do things, those people that people don't want. Those are the best jobs, man. Once people
They
don't
really
want,
are. They
they're
really are.
coming.
And you're like the sixth, maybe even the seventh or eighth person who basically said, do the job that nobody else wants to do, right? Learn to do the things that nobody else wants to do, because in that you basically build a job for yourself and you become an invaluable asset. To be able to think about mindset, super focus on mindset, think of abundance, that's an awesome piece of advice, right? Like I said before, we're in a position where there's always going to be a need to fix things. There's never going to be a time where we are autonomous human beings teleporting between places without something to fix. Because you think, oh well, Star Wars and fantasy, whatever. The ships and the teleporters and all those things, they still break. They still require repair. There is always going to be a need to repair things, and there is never going to be a time where mechanics aren't necessary. So learn to do the things that people just don't, nobody else wants to do. Learn to do those jobs that nobody else wants to do. So to that point, I think the tidbit here that I want to ask you here. So I've been asking guests to ask the next guest a question. So they answer their question from the previous, and then they get to ask a question to the next person. So the last person I interviewed was a wonderful Sheila Poe, and she got to answer an interesting question, which y'all have to go back and listen to. But Sheila posed you a question here. So what's the wildest thing you've experienced that made you go, only in a dealership?
That's tough, man. That's a good question, Sheila. Oh, that's a good one, man.
I think you might have a unique experience, because I don't think I've had anybody on the show that's been as heavily experienced in Cadillac as you have. And
Our trip.
And I would say boats are also, because of what you work on, a very specialized series of boats. Now you work on a little bit of everything, because I've seen some of the pictures of the boats that you get to work on and deal with customers and of that nature. So there's a very select grouping of customers that you deal with on a day-to-day basis over the last decade.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the trippiest ones.
Is it hard to find one that you can say publicly?
Shit, man. I've seen, like, we've all seen some shit. You know, you got your fair share of, like, maybe a dead rodent here and there, caught up in an engine bay. Or I'm trying to think of a gnarly customer. I love the term "the customer is never wrong," because truly some of these guys, they feel like they're never wrong. So when someone calls up and they're like, one customer, he's like, hey, my boat doesn't run, you know, it's you know, come fix it, come take a look at it or whatever. So we go check it out. I get there, and sure as shit, the boat's like tilting sideways, and he swears up and down, takes care of the thing. No, I got a team of people. So we get there, get a little closer. I'm like, why is this thing sitting a little sideways? Come to find out, I go to try and start everything, batteries, everything's stone dead. I'm like, let me open the engine hatch, all electric actuators, so you can't open them. So it's like, so we pull the pin, we get the actuator, boom, straight up, full of water, like to the engine, bro. And we're just like, and he swears on his life that it's our fault and that he's taking care of it. He's done everything in his power to take care of it. And so we get the thing upright. We got to get it towed out of there. Come to find out, the guy's taking care of it. They don't plug it into the charger. They don't do any of that. Batteries die. So we take in on this boat on trade, and now we're stuck with it for a little bit. They're not wrong. So we trade him into another boat, and he's got the same mentality in this new one, where there's nothing that he could do wrong, or everything is our fault. And, you know, everything he does, he has the same people taking care of this boat. And I'm like, so I get there, like, once again, he didn't sink this one, thank the Lord, but sure as shit, not plugged into the power, half the thing is dead. Seeing how customers, how they handle it is beyond me, and how we still cater to them. It's wild, man. You know, I don't know if it's a wealthy get or it's just part of the game. I have no idea, but I guess he bought another boat, so I guess we're good. I don't know.
Arrogance and ignorance know no limits,
No limits, bro.
which means to me that it doesn't matter what it is that we're specifically talking about in terms of vehicle or thing or vacation. Arrogance and ignorance know no bounds. So the difference between a Pontiac dealer and a little Sunfire and a $300,000, $500,000 boat is simply the price tag on the thing. The person behind the wheel, and more importantly, the person on the ownership slip. That's the only thing that matters. Because the pocketbook, no matter how big the pocketbook is or how small the pocketbook is, arrogance and ignorance know no bounds. So thank you very much for asking that. So your question that we'll get on here, what would you say? Doesn't matter what the question is, ask anything. What's your question for the next guest?
I guess not the craziest, but what would be the thing that you never thought you dreamt of happened in your career? One of the wildest things in a good sense, not such a customer. So what would be the coolest thing that ever happened to you at your job or career, depending on who we're talking to next?
I'll get that off camera afterwards. What's the coolest thing that's happened in your career? Okay, that's a good one. I like that. Nobody's asked that yet. That's pretty cool. Well, on that note, John, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it very much.
A pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
You're most welcome. And folks, and I think that's a great way to end the show today. We've had some talk about cars, about some boats, about leadership, a little bit about all of that through and through. So I really appreciate you listening, watching. I really hope that you subscribe, and I really hope you hit that like button down below. Make sure you click that button. Really helps us grow the channel and spread awareness and bring attention to the industry at large. And we're going to end with a quote, as we always do. And this one, I think stands to reason after listening to a story of somebody who worked at 3 dealerships that closed while he was there. And the quote goes, "The most effective way to do it is to do it."
Yes, sir.
Amelia Earhart. Folks, remember, negative pushes, positive pulls, and always clean your toys before you put them away.